Hey, can y'all hear me okay? All right, I love this thing. If you weren't here last time, it's just so fancy. It makes me feel like I'm all together. I love it so much. Um, I'm excited that y'all are here. I couldn't believe she said that there might be more, and I walked in, I was like, eek, there are so many more. I'm also excited that I'm here because I almost didn't make it. Um, I was getting ready, and I was like, oh, I'm going to spruce up my makeup a little, look real cute for these ladies, because, I want to be pretty when I talk about the things. That's important, right? And I don't know that the weather might have confused me and how warm it is, but I accidentally put on, y'all know how you have, I don't know if y'all all do this, but two different color makeups, like you have your winter makeup and your summer makeup. I was like getting all ready, and I was like, orange. My whole face was orange, and my eyebrows were orange. And so if they still are with this light, somebody please get me a wet nap or something, or baby wipe. Maybe some of you are moms. So it's a big day. It's always good when you're running late for a lesson on time. It makes you feel really good about yourself. So if anybody else would like to come up, let's go. Someone else can teach it. No, I am excited. On these things that we're going to talk about in these next 6 weeks, some of them might not be one you need. You might be really good at it. But my hope was that you're sitting at a table with other people who aren't. You can help each other out. There might be some wisdom. I know last semester I was sitting at a table, and one of the ladies shared what her quiet time was like and how she did it, and I found myself going, do it like that, do it like I learn from other people, so hopefully we can do that together. We're talking about time. Tonight we're not talking about the hours, just on the clock. That's easy. You can have planners, and does anybody really like planners? I do. You have cute ones? Does anyone do that, bullet journaling? Has anyone ever done that? Y'all know what that is, where you have to get these little bullet journals and you decorate every single page for every single thing that you need? I love it. I'm not here to hate on those things. I promise you. You will not hear that from me. But it's not going to be about just time and getting your hours straight. And I'm going to show you why. Because if we just did that, it's easy. And I'm very excited because, there's my children. How cute. That's what we're going to do is look at pictures of my family and my cats. Just kidding, I don't have any cats.
I'm using my life to create more time in my day, week, and month. 1, never allowing myself to hit the snooze button, which forces me to get up and get the day started. 2, scheduling my haircut in advance so when I get to the shop, I do not have to wait in line. 3,
What I'm about to tell you will probably change your entire life. This is a time management strategy from the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Build a grid with 4 quadrants to organize how you spend your time. And put
That's fun.
I use for my to-do list. This app lets you track your activities and your progress. Just add any.
I got a lot of requests for time management tips on my last video, so here we go. My first tip is study a little bit every day. I know this sounds like it would be more time consuming than cramming, but you will learn so much.
Okay guys, let's talk about 3 time management rules we need to live by. The first is not to talk yourself out of something when you already told yourself you're going to do it. Don't negotiate with yourself, just carry on with what you set out to do.
Here's the truth about time management that I discovered this year that's completely changed my life. Time management doesn't actually exist. The truth is this, it's not about managing your time, it's about managing yourself. You block time in your...
Once I had this realization, I will never claim that I don't have enough time for something ever again. The 8x8x8 rule states that you have 24 hours in a day, and
if you have ADHD, this is a quick and easy way to have your time management skills. My name is Paige Sparks, I'm a lawyer, and if I don't actively keep track of this, I find the littlest, smallest tasks that I put off because I don't want to do.
Time management tips for the girls trying to be that girl and get all of that girl things done within a day.
Okay, y'all are getting it. So much math, so many numbers I saw there. I'm going to take my kids off of there for y'all, or hope that my teenagers don't text me while I'm on here and you'll have to see everything going down. So yeah, you're not ready for all that yet, people. There's so many things. Who has TikTok? Admit it. Go ahead and admit it if you're in here. Some of you young people, not very many of you. Were you drawn in? Were you sucked into all of that? It will. I've never had Instagram or Facebook, so I get sucked in. I can go, that should just be the whole lesson right there, is Jen getting off TikTok. It's a problem. But we could do that. We could get on. I think they have that kind of stuff. Don't they have videos on your Instagram? Can you get stuff like that on there? Reels. Ooh, thank you for those fancy names for that young college girl. So smart. This isn't going to be about hours, because if we did that, we can just go get on there. We can go look. We can find the things, get the cute planners and all of that. And we have to live. It's not like you're going to have every single minute planned out. That's just going to cause you stress. I mean, they're always talking about self-care, all that thing. Like you have to schedule your self-care with the 8x8 rule. And I do think, though, if you really need to learn something, you should always or teach something, you should do it in the British voice like that dude. Don't you just want to listen? Like, let me tell you how to do this better, and you'll be so much wiser in your life. Like, I would love that. No, it's not going to be about that. This is more about just learning why you do the things you do with your time. When someone comes to counseling with me, oh, by the way, I forgot to tell some of y'all, I'm a counselor. I know, surprising, right? Every day. I'm like, wow, he got me to do that. Yay. Yay, Lord. They come in and they'll have an issue that they come in for. And this is what you're supposed to do. This is what I was taught at Oklahoma State University. Go Pokes. You're supposed to sit down, kind of match their energy, is what you young people would say, like kind of like be in the same zone, like mirror them. If they're turning, you're turning. And if they're crossing legs, you're crossing legs. This is what they taught. I don't know if they still teach it now. But then when you get that done, you're supposed to say, so what brings you in today? That's how you're supposed to do it. I'm not great at doing all those things. I'm like, let's go. Come on, y'all. I'm like, here we are. Let's do this. But it's good. But usually whatever they say that brings them in, they have this, it's called the presenting issue. It's not what you find. There's so much more. They may come in and be like, I'm fighting with my daughter. You find out that they had issues with, their lives growing up. And you go, oh, I can see where you might have got that. So it's always looking for the why. How did somebody get there? How do they feel about it? What's going on in their heart? That's how I feel about all these subjects we're teaching. This isn't going to just be like, what are you doing? How are you doing it? You have to see what's really going on with you. And spoiler alert, all of them really will be that. It's not going to be about the behavior and you checking off boxes, because I love a good box and to-do list, but really seeing what's going on with you. So the first thing we have to realize is how precious the gift of time is. Where we struggle, why? Clearing out clutter in your life so that you can have peace. If you understand how precious time is, I think one of the biggest things about this is you can avoid regret. I'm not trying to have you guys leave here and be all shameful and guilty because you don't spend your time in certain ways. That's not up to me. That's between you and the Lord. But I do want us to not have as many regrets. I think that would be okay. I know for myself, I have a lot of regrets about the kids when they were little because I felt so overwhelmed and just so busy all the time. And just, they were crazy. They were all 3 under 4. I don't know who birthed those children, and they were just wild, and then I just felt frantic all the time, and I don't feel like I was present. Do other moms feel that sometimes? Okay, thank you. You little nodders should get prizes. That's really good. Thanks. So I think that's a really good thing to do is not have as many regrets. So I don't know why we pick and choose more of those. So we're going to look at Psalm 90. I'm going to just go through this one real quick, so you don't have to open it up unless you just love that. It's a little tough to read, but I think it starts to tell us how to look at time. And this is when it's referring to Moses, and he's crying out to God, and he's basically admitting, because Moses had been through some stuff, admitting that God is in control, that we don't have control, and that our lives are short. So verse 12 starts, and this is the verse you'll hear, but there's just so much more to it. It says, so teach us to number our days, that we may get a heart of wisdom. Return, O Lord, how long? Have pity on your servants. Satisfy us in the morning with your steadfast love, that we may rejoice and be glad all our days. And it has a couple more verses. But then in 17 it says, let the favor of the Lord our God be upon us and establish the work of our hands. Yes, establish the work of our hands. So he's acknowledging the presence of God, God's wrath, and out of all that they've been through, he's asking them and begging him for his direction. So even in his circumstances, Moses knew the importance of time, and he begged God to establish the work of his hands. So I like that one. I think that's good, is that our days are numbered. And then how important it is that you commit your time to this verse. It says, for it is God. It's Philippians 2:13. And it says, for it is God who works in you, both to will and to work for his good pleasure. So what we do is important. We're just not in charge. It's about his pleasure. And if we don't see time like that, not that we're always just praising him and singing songs and, we got to take time to put on orange makeup and things like that. So, but really stopping to say, this is about you and it's for you. Some of you are in a season of life that actually does take time. If you have littles, some of you in college that are here tonight, you may have a job and college. Some of you are caregivers to older people. That takes, like, your whole life is basically set to taking care of what you have to take care of and then taking care of your loved one. There's just so much. Some of you are running around. You've got the older kids and you're running around as their personal Uber. It's legitimate things that take your time. But I'm going to say for most of us, I think there's more ways we can use our time well. I do think that we check out, get distracted, and I'll share some of those things later. And there's ways that we could, use it better. So we'll look. If you have issues with that, you have to look closely at yourself. And this is Psalm 139, 23 and 24. It says, search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts, and see if there be a grievous way in me. Lead me in the way everlasting. That verse doesn't say make a beautiful to-do list, check all your boxes, make sure that you control everything you can. Call God in if you need him. So it's asking him to let us know. Like, we're actually submitting that to him and saying, God, you show me. I'll show my husband often, but I want him to ask God, I'm really good at pointing things out to him, but he probably will know better if he listens to the Lord. So I actually read this morning and added it in, and it ended up being, it was one of the, I guess God knows what he's doing. Thank God, you. I was reading Exodus, and I was thinking about how we do take things in our own hands, how we try to control our circumstances, overthink, make sure we got all the boxes done, prepare a fully baked plan all day. And I was reading Exodus 15 and 16, and I was like, this isn't new. And y'all can go ahead and open up to that one because we're going to be there in a second if you want to. This isn't new. Like, we've been doing this for a long time, people taking things into their own hands. So we're real similar to those Israelites. So in chapter 14, that's the whole Red Sea, okay? I think most of you, I don't want to assume, but most of you know that that's when the people are running from the Egyptians, and it had been a whole thing. There had been some plagues. You think they would have figured out that God was in control by just the frogs falling, but they, had all these things happen. They finally, get to go, and then Moses leads them across the Red Sea, and I believe, I can't remember now, I think it said at that time he was like a cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. Does that sound biblical? Ann says yes. Woo! So, I just think about myself if I'm walking along, through wherever, and I see I'm driving down the street and I see the cloud, I'd be like, Lord, you're good, and I will believe you forever because you're a cloud. But these people saw it, and then we get to verse 15. So they saw all that happen, or chapter 15. It says, then Moses and the Israelites sang this song to the Lord. I will sing to the Lord, for he is highly exalted. Both horse and driver he has hurled into the sea. The Lord is my strength and my defense. He has become my salvation. He is my God. I will praise him. My father's God, and I will exalt him. The Lord is a warrior. The Lord is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and his army he has hurled into the sea. The best of Pharaoh's officers are drowned in the Red Sea. So they're dead, obviously. The deep waters have covered them. They sank to the depths like a stone. Your right hand, Lord, was majestic in power. Your right hand, Lord, shattered the enemy. In the greatness of your majesty, you threw down those who opposed you. You unleashed your burning anger. It consumed them like stubble. And it says it's a song. I'm not going to sing to y'all because y'all won't come back. But, they're making up a song. Like, they went Taylor Swift on this. Like, they got all their emotions out, and they are stopping to tell the Lord thank you in song. That seems like a big deal. Like, did any of you walk around just singing random praises to the Lord about your day? Like, thank you that my teenager cleaned his room. Like, we don't. And these people knew that he was God. It ends with, who in verse 11, who among the gods is like you, Lord? Who is like you, majestic in holiness, awesome in glory, working wonders? So, sounds pretty good, right? But by the end of 15, if you go further in your own little reading, we see that they are already upset. They're ticked. They didn't have water at that time. It wasn't sweet enough or something, so he had to make it sweet, make some promises. Like, he tells them he's going to take care of them as long as they will obey him. They get a lot of good promises, and so then they have their sweet water and lots of, I can't even remember, but lots of like springs of water. So really nice. And palm trees, they had those too. And so that seems good. And then we get to 16. So he meets their needs. We get to 16, and the people get hangry at that point. Like hungry, angry, and sarcastic. So verse 2 says, in the desert, the whole community grumbled against Moses Aaron. The Israelites said to them, "If only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. There we sat around the pots of meat. We ate all the food we wanted, but you've brought us into this desert to starve this entire assembly to death." Like, do they not sound like your teenagers sometimes? I was like, this sounds familiar. So they go from that to that. They just keep flip-flopping, going back and forth. And so they're mad and they're griping. And, I mean, they're just kind of whiny. Sorry, Israelites, but you were. And the chapter goes on to give them instructions. So now he's like, okay, I'm coming back in. I'm going to give them food. And this is how I'm going to do it. So I believe he gave them quail, I think, at night. I'm just having to remember some of this from my reading this morning. But then he gave them manna in the morning. And I believe, I'm not a biblical scholar, so sorry, just a therapist. Is manna breadish? Is that right? Yeah. So he gave them carbs, and that should have been enough, like delicious, yummy carbs. And he told them how much to eat, when to collect it, and all the things. And they still tried to trick him. He was like, "Don't take too much, don't take too little, just take what you're supposed to." And they're like, and they just like gather their carbs up and keep trying to overdo it. And so I guess some of it burns out. And I just thinking, that is us. We're like, I know you said you were going to do these things. I know you promised me over and over. I'm all in. No, I'm not all in anymore. I'm going to gather my carbs. That's what I'm going to do now. We have those things in our lives. So I don't know. I thought that was pretty good. So I was thinking about in the magazine, I don't read magazines anymore because, we're so cool and techie these days. But when they would say like celebrities, they're just like us. Do y'all remember, does anybody remember this? And they would show like somebody grocery shopping. I was thinking the Israelites, they're just like us. But yeah. They lost sight of their purpose. They let their circumstances get in the way. And I think we can all avoid this by first knowing what our purpose is. Did any of you actually listen to Andy Stanley? Raise your hand. Okay. I promise from the others in the room nodding, he is good. I think he's dead on, and I always learn so much. And he's one that if you want to give him to friends who may not know a lot about God, he's deep, but he's also simple. And so he was in a podcast with someone named Clay Scroggins. It was a leadership podcast. And they were talking about leaders know their why. They know why they're here. They know their purpose. So he said that was the first thing that you need to know is what your why is. What your ultimate goal is in life. And on the handout later on, I have a little place for you guys to put those things, because if you don't know what you really care about, then you can't check all this against that. You can't check all your things that you're doing against your why. So if my why is to, raise a family and be intentional with my kids, but then I go to Hobby Lobby so that I can embroider when I don't even know how to, that's not a good way to check my time, although my embroidery is getting better. So knowing that and knowing your why is good, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. In Matthew 6:21, it says, "Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." Your priorities are going to dictate what you do with your time. So you have to figure out what gets in the way of your why. Having exposure, we're not going to know. Did anybody hear that story I told about my friend who, I don't know if y'all saw the video, but my friend had gotten ready for everything, for the holidays, and she had all the family coming to her house, and it was beautiful and pristine, and she's really good at decorating, and everything was lovely. And then her son at the same time, the family's all coming, and I think some of you know, sometimes family's difficult. I don't know. I know. Some of you know, right? And it's a lot just in that to know that they're all coming. So she's their food and all the things. And then her teenage son walks outside to take out the trash through the garage. And when the family gets there, he's like, "Hey guys, come on in." And they all walk through the garage. I don't know what your garages look like, but mine is not good. My house might look clean, but if you come to my house, just go look in the garage. And that's how I feel about our issues with this. If you don't know, if you can't expose what's really in there and you can't really see what you're going through, then and have some exposure and light on it, then you can't start the cleanup. I wrote on here, you can't start decluttering until you know your mess. And so I came up with some things that I think, just praying through this for y'all, of time killers. So I wrote on here, control is the first one. I keep mentioning it, maybe because I have an issue, but that's the to-do list. I like to decorate mine for reals. I put stickers on them and stuff because it makes me think I'm going to do them. So with control is rigidity It's the opposite of surrender, like the Israelites, like I was saying, taking things into their own hands, not trusting God, even though they had seen him work so many times. And I know that I'm guilty of that. And the next one I put is excuses, blaming others. And we've been doing that since Adam and Eve, when God's like, why are you naked? And she's like, well, the serpent made me do it. And then Adam's like, the woman made me do it. We've been blaming other people for our issues since the beginning of time. But truly, like, I always use the word, I'm like self-loathy, and it's not a word, but I'm like, oh, I feel so self-loathy right now. So if you're self-loathing, that's not really what we need to do, but maybe stop and be aware of what you actually do. Don't blame everybody else. Active avoidance. Oh, that's my little baby, active avoidance. This is why I actually picked doing the subject of time out of all the ones, because I know that this is one of my biggest struggles in life. I know I have some things in my life that I know God is leading me to do. I know that because they keep staying on my head. I'll get fun ideas. I get super excited. But these are the ones that won't go away. And I'm scared. And I don't want to do them. And I don't know that I always trust him that he's going to actually follow through. And so I don't want to do a quiet time sometimes if I'm really struggling. And I don't want to sit and work on this thing that I know that I'm supposed to be working on. Sometimes I'll think, well, if I clean my environment and clean up my house, then I could do all those things. Like I'll put other stuff in the way. And then I end up getting overwhelmed because my teenagers aren't helping me clean. So then I'm mad at them and my husband, thinking, why do I have to do all this for all of you? Y'all are probably better people, but this is where I am. This is my journey. And then I will end up just going to Target. That's the land of my people. So I go there. You all have your reasons, and some of yours are going to be from other categories, but some of you might be hurt. Like you don't trust God right now because you don't like how things are turning out. I think that happens a lot. You don't think that you're capable, so you just actively avoid and don't want to trust him. I think Moses was that guy when he tried to argue with God at the beginning. Like he's like right there with God. And he's like, I don't think I can speak. He's like, fine, you can have your brother. I think that's how God said it. I don't know. I wasn't there. But I'm sure at that point that's how he felt. The next one I put on here is called purposeful chaos. I think a lot of people like to be busy. They feel like they're accomplished when they're busy. And they don't want any of the dust to settle. They like having a problem. I'm not talking to any of you. I don't know your lives. I'm just saying that some people do this. They want their time absorbed. Lord? No, not him. Okay. Sorry. It was a really good ringtone. It sounded holy. So they don't want the dust to settle. Sorry. Sarcasm is my spiritual gift. They just don't want to stop and see what's going on inside of them. So I have another name, especially with teenagers who, not being mean to teenagers, I actually love them. That's one of my favorite things to work with. But y'all know what hypochondriacs are, where they always have an illness. I've made up the term dramachondriacs. Like they're seeking the pain. Like they'll be like, fire, I'm coming in. They like it. So procrastination is the next one. It's, of course, putting things off. It's self-explanatory. But this one's kind of tricky because it's a double whammy. Not only do you have to rush to get to the end and do everything last minute, but the waiting and before, all the waiting and the knowing you had to do it, takes up just as much energy. So procrastination gets you twice. And I think students, I don't know, not this one because she's precious, but most of them, I think they know what that's like. They just want to get going, do all the things, and then they're like, oh my goodness, there's so much to be done, right at the end. And then they're super stressed. So the next one is busyness or noise. These are similar to me. But as I said earlier, some of you are truly busy. You have things that are going on, and they're hard. They really are. I listen to people every day for my life. That's my job. And I know that some things are really hard and taking time from people. But this is where you get to be honest with yourself. And you really have to, see if there's places that you can redeem your time. Boundaries is the next one. So when it comes to self-awareness, you have to understand why you let others zap your time and energy. We're supposed to love people. As Christians, we're asked to love. We're supposed to love our neighbor, all the things. But there's another side to that. It can be people-pleasing, codependence, feeling unworthy, so you want to go prove yourself. Just other unhealthy reasons why you're out there helping people. And it's a hard look at yourself to go, yep, that's not, I'm not doing this out of love for the Lord. I'm doing this out of self-preservation or whatever it is. So Lisa Turkhurst, I like her a lot, and she has a book about that, and I wrote it on your sheets. And I heard her speaking to Jenny Allen about this one day. She said, good boundaries will hopefully help you maintain relationships with people, not try to cut everybody out of your life and be like, you're dead to me, like you're gone. But like, you're not going to be gangster at your Thanksgiving, and just get everybody gone. But like really starting to have boundaries so that you can keep some sort of relationship with them where it doesn't suck all your energy and your time. So the next one's checking out. And that is kind of like what I was saying about TikTok. There's just some days where I come home and I really just want to not do anything. I have issues with wanting to check out. Wow, all these issues are about me. Just kidding. Not all, some of them. This week alone in my office, I've had 4 young girls come in, all ages 12 and 13, all of them saying that they were depressed and down and blah and all the things. And I get it. It's kind of the season. School just started. Their schedules are off. But when I asked them all what they do, they literally come home after school, and one of them described it as, well, my grandma doesn't know why I'm sitting in the dark, but it's because I've been on TikTok all day and it got dark. I was like, oh, so hours of just sitting there scrolling. And if you saw anything on there, it's easy to do. And so these kids just check out mentally and want to be numb. I think we all do that in different ways. So, all right, so that brings me to distractions. And I don't know how to say, I think it's Latin, but it's distraher. Does that sound pretty good? Very Latin. It means to draw away or apart. And when you're distracted, you are drawn away from the Lord. That Andy Stanley podcast, he was talking about humans are wired to turn up any kind of distraction if it keeps us from paying attention to what is inside of us. So we will turn up any distraction that'll help us not see what we're going through or how we're feeling. And I think that is true. That's why sometimes I've had people come in and they sit down and then all of a sudden they cry immediately. They're like, I don't know why I'm crying. And I'm like, it's okay. They just got still enough to do that and cry. And so I'm here for it. And sometimes we don't do that. We won't sit still enough because we don't want that feeling. All right, so those are some of the darker side. Now here are the time redeemers. Mindfulness. That would be the opposite of being distracted. Thinking about what you're thinking about, pausing to check in on how you feel, looking at the narrative that you have in your head, seeing how you speak to yourself. I can't remember how many it is, but it's like we have, I want to say 80,000 thoughts a day. I'm going to mess up the numbers, but I promise we're somewhere close. It's like 80,000 thoughts a day, and most of them are repetitive, and most of them are negative. So I think it's like 90% are repetitive, 90% are negative. Like we go through rapid cycling of negative thoughts in our heads every day. And so really stopping to, when it talks in the Bible about taking those thoughts captive, just stopping and seeing what you have. So in counseling, I had read a research article that said with little kids, and they said adults too, but with little kids, just getting them to be able to say how they feel. Like I'll play a game with little kids called Happy, Mad, Sad, Scared. Something that made you happy, something that made you mad, sad, scared. And you want them to be able to do those basics. But anybody being able just to label that feeling of what's going on will make them start to heal, because now we brought it into the front of us so we can start to really look at it. So I think that's why we have all those cute little emoji posters, like, how are you feeling today? And it's like, So the next one is being intentional. And that basically just means knowing your whys. Simplicity. The less you have physically, and we'll talk about that in a few weeks. Boo, I'm not excited. And mentally means you can stop and think more clearly about what you're needing to do, and you can stop wasting time. So for me, the problem in our home is socks. Like, it's a bad problem. Please, someone, just raise your hand if you have socks in like a sock box. No? Oh, you people are blessed. Yeah, like I have 3 teenagers and then this husband and me, and I don't wear a lot of socks. Like, I don't need them. We have an entire laundry basket of socks, and the kids come dig through it like little hamsters every morning to get to their socks. So if I would, and I always, this is the best part. I always think, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to clean all the laundry. It's all going to get done. And then I'm going to put the socks together, and then I'm going to throw away the other socks. I'm like, it's happening. But by the time we get to the laundry clean, I forgot, or we didn't actually get all the laundry clean. So then I'd done the socks, but there's still socks left, and I can never quite get to that next part. So if anybody wants to come in the name of the Lord and help me fold socks at my house, I'll be home tomorrow. So, yeah, whatever you, like when we have more to clean and more to do, it gets us. The next one's quiet, which is my gift. I'm just kidding. Sorry, some people laugh because I know. This is what the Bible says about stillness. Like, be still. Know that I'm God. Like, sitting with him, like letting him search your heart. You can't do that if you're not being quiet. It's not my favorite, but I think it's probably biblical truth. Dependence. Just basically seeking God's truth and why you're struggling. So whatever you're going through and saying, Lord, I need you to change this. I am dependent on you. I'm not in charge of all the other people, and you are in charge of me. One of the ladies, I'd asked her about this study, and she said that she feels like women, a lot of times, their time and their energy is zapped because they feel so responsible for other people. And I was like, yeah, that's actually true. Good word, lady. It's a very smart woman. And so I was reading yesterday, and I had one of those Home Alone moments where he walks out in Home Alone. He's like, I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not afraid. Like I was like, that's what I call my moments where I'm like, oh, that's good. So this is what happened. I was reading John chapter 15, and that is the abiding chapter. And so it starts at chapter 5, and it says, I'm the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If you do not remain in me, you are like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up and thrown into the fire and burned. So I don't want that. It says, if you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish and it will be done for you. This is to my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. And I was reading, I was like, Jennifer, you little branch, you. I was like, I am not the vine. That's what I came up with. I'm not the vine. You guys aren't viney. I'm sorry. You're cute. You're not the vines. You're branches too. Let's just still be the branches that get thrown into the fire. But we're only going to be able to bear fruit if we are dependent on him to give us that. And so maybe that's not as big as an epiphany for you, but for me, I was like, stop being the vine, Jennifer. So that's my new cuss word. Oh, it's the vine. So yeah, I was like, okay, I'm going to work on that. And I did. I was not the vine all day yesterday. We're doing okay on time. All right, so Jamie and I talked about like what scripture we thought worked, and sure enough, there's a lot of scripture that works for these topics. It's like God knows. But we really liked the fruits of the Spirit, and I told her, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to tell that story, but I guess since I'm actually running on time, I'm telling this story, and this might be the last time they come. So it was so good to see your faces, and I love you, sisters in Christ. Can you get me that big giant thing, that poster, Dilly? Just the poster, not the canvas, not the bag. Yes. All right, this is one of the most special things I have, but not for a good reason. And it is a Bible verse, thank you. I won't make you hold it like, hi, there it is. So this is something that one of my clients made for me. The cool part was that this client was an atheist. And so I've had this in my office. I've been at Christ Counseling this is 17 years, going into 17 years. And I've had this one probably for 12, I would think. So it's always been up. It's starting to get kind of dirty, so I brought it down. So yes, fruits of the Spirit. Galatians 5:22 and 23. So the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Here's the problem with this art. It reminds me of one of my worst moments in my life. This client had come in, and she was young, and she was from a really hard family. She'd gone through some major things, and she did not want to be in a place that had Jesus' name on the building, and she didn't want to be talking to anybody about her stuff. And I get it. I get that. Like, nobody wants to just put their stuff out there like that. I've always been respectful of that. But so I'm trying to, make her feel more at ease. But unfortunately, I had a really good example for her because she's like, you're going to think you're too good and blah, blah. You're probably going to judge me. Like, she said all this. She had good little vocabulary, a lot of voice. And I said, oh, no. Because I told her of a story that had happened to me not long before. It was a day, it started on a warm day in August of 2008. Yeah, that's right. That's actually about when it was. Wow. And I'd come up to the church, and they had a Beth Moore Bible study on fruits of the Spirit. Okay? I don't know who all was here. Maybe some of you were there. I was there one time, because this is why. I got in there, and I was like, I love that Bible verse. I love that whole thing. I love people. Check. Joy, I got it. I've made it through a lot of stuff. I got this one. Check. Peace, it's a little janky on peace, but it's cool. A little bit more anxiety than peace, but we'll work on that. That's good. In my head, I was like, I've got these down. I am ready for this Bible study. And I might have floated out. I think I did. Floated out to my car, went to my car, and went home. That night, we lived in a neighborhood. It was a decent neighborhood over in Sykes Estates. And I heard these girls fighting in my front yard. And I was you got to know this part, very large, pregnant with my child who was born in August. So very large, very large. And so I hear them fighting, and we've had college kids having parties. Like, it had been a thing. So, you just know. Like, you're just like, oh, I don't have any energy for this. And it's late. It's like 2 a.m. So I wake my husband up. I'm like, hey, there's people fighting in our yard. Can you go deal with them? He's like, ugh. He gets up, okay? He goes outside, and he's like, he was actually pretty nice for him. Like, when he's having to deal with people, he said, hey, can y'all be quiet? My son's asleep. And some girl yells out to my husband, nobody told you to have kids. So this, not to be mean, but this happened to be when Britney Spears was losing her mind back in the day when she shaved her head. I had my moment. I get up from my bed. I think I need to stand, but let me try not to do this too dramatically, which is on brand for me. I get up from my bed, and I run to the front door in a nightgown, very large, okay? And I'm like, what'd you say? What'd you say? And she's like, what? And I was like, oh, you want to go? Now, I'm going to tell you that there were bleeps. Bleep, bleep, bleep. And they weren't all from her, okay? And I was a counselor at Christ Counseling Ministry. You don't have to tell anybody necessarily. We'll keep that in the room. I was like, you don't even know. And I don't know what came over me, but I said words that he, in all of our marriage that thus far, had never heard. And I am going, and I'm like, I'm going to kick your blah, 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 blah. And she's like, man, this bleep is crazy. Sorry, I'm so sorry, Ann. I'm going to take her down. I'm sorry. Ann is nervous and scared. And I was like, yeah, that's right. And she's like, we're out of here. And they like peel out and leave. And I'm like, yeah, Sykes Estates, what? No, I didn't do that. Like, I am ready to go. And I would have never thought that I would do that to anyone. So I told my little client this story. But here's the best part of the story. I'm like going to bed. I don't know if you've ever had an interaction with such people. But like I said, I don't usually. Since I was like 16 at least. And I am laying in bed. I'm like, yeah, I told her. And I said, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, yeah, I'm so tough. I mean, just seething. And I didn't hear it out loud. But remember that morning? How I was like, fruits of the Spirit. Here I am. Y'all will be blessed by my presence. The Lord literally said, that's who you are without me. And it hit me so hard. So I went from to nice, good one. Like, you got that one. Point, Jesus. So that's why the fruits of the Spirit are very important to me, because they keep me in check, just to go, if I'm not where I need to be, what am I going to do? How do I get the Lord, not to work harder, not to be more, not to try harder, but to let him guide me? And so now I keep this up, because it's a good reminder that you are never too good to get to that place. So obviously, I'm not.